Hi everyone, Religious Fanboy here again. And a few days ago, well, I- last week, bunch of YouTube channels did a multi-channel series called One Excellent Scene that was started by NOV Movies and a few other channels such as Cinema Wins and a bunch of other channels have done it, have submitted things like Red versus Blue from the Overly Sarcastic podcast. This is and inspired me, especially when they started talking about discussing scenes from animated shows. Most of them picked the Fox movies, but I'm gonna talk about today, like kind of inspired by one excellent scene, but it's still gonna be an anime devotion because that is how we. Uh, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good time. I hope you guys get out of this whatever. I hope and pray that you get out of this video whatever God calls you to, and also just some fundamental things to get out of the way. It's like, yeah, this episode's really awesome. I'm gonna talk about why it's so awesome, but some fundamental things are like the animation's just great. It's fun. And voice acting's great in this. Um, but the episode we're talking about is from X-Men Evolution Season 3, Episode 5, titled The Beast of Bayville. The main message that I saw paralleled and depicted through the scene is the importance and it parallels how God will call us to uncomfortable and season uncomfortable things and experiences and places in order for us to be shaped by it and God being able to use that to help us to grow and challenge us and stretch us in order to grow to be more like him. I'm not saying that he causes bad things to happen to us, but I hope that you understand when I say this that and take away from this that God uses and is able to use the negative experiences, even the ones that haunt us, and the things that were once things that we struggled with, um, in order to help us to grow closer to being more like God and Jesus, but also help and reach out to others and help them to hopefully become more like God. And um we see this an example of this in my life was when I initially went to Greenville. There it was the night after it was the first Friday night after the first week of school had been completed, and I had had a rough week, and by Friday night I wanted to go home, but I also felt like if I had went all the way home that weekend, I really wouldn't have wanted to go back. And it was raining. I was actually I had been walking back from eating back to my dorm. I was actually about to call um my mom and tell them that I wanted to go home that weekend, but it was right as I was about to call them, right as about to I was about to say that I heard thunder, and something about that just made me feel like I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to be on campus tonight, and I was able to have a deep conversation with one of my new friends, and it was one of the many helpful conversations that I had had that weekend and would have that weekend. Um, and this is shown in the episode. Specifically, a scene that I want to focus on is it's towards the end of the episode where the X-Men were able to help Beast get back in control and to calm down. Um, and he was talking with Xavier, talking about how like Beast wasn't willing to live with and wanted to avoid his beastly trans- transformation, but he couldn't control it. And rather than controlling it and living with his unique and difficult circumstances to actually overcome the uncontrollable aspects of that transformation, he chose he had chosen to going to a formula to suppress the transformation, and the formulas had stopped working, and Xavier told him that if he were willing, that it would be best for him to stay at the X Mansion because for what he needed to do, there wasn't gonna be a quick fix answer, at least not one that Xavier could provide or Hank McCoy could turn to during that time. But Beast, even with his reputation destroyed, he didn't, by his outbursts, he could not fathom giving up teaching And it was through his conversation with Xavier and through that mansion and the young mutants there that Beast was able to find a new purpose and be a teacher in a way that he didn't expect or think that he would want, but he was able to find a way where he can learn to control and overcome the negative aspects of his mutation while doing what he was best at and continuing to help others. I like Beast, like some of my experiences. If if we don't see a solution or a way to overcome an issue we have, we might feel like it is better to temporarily distract ourselves and not to deal with the problem in response to when negative thoughts and issues linger that we do not know how to overcome yet. But avoiding a problem is not the same thing as overcoming your problem. It is allowing the problem to continue while you pretend it is no longer an issue. Even when we aren't um, pouring in to others spiritually, we also need to remember the importance of overcoming the lessons we need to learn in our relationship with God. The first passage of tonight is Hebrews 5, verses 12 through 14. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food, for everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a child, but solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. My first talking point is doing what God has called us to do and growing to be more like Him will require us to make sacrifices. In this case, the Hank McCoy had to be willing to embrace his physical mutation in that body in order to overcome his animal instincts and his uncontrollable aggression that were the reasons why he had worked so hard to avoid and became dependent on that formula to avoid that his transformation. There in the book, um, there are multiple Henry Nouwen talked about how there are multiple stages in the Christian life. The third, but I am primarily going to focus on the fourth and third stage when talking about this episode and the Christian lessons and themes that I've saw in it and had been shown in it. A third stage is doing things stage. This is kind of represented by times where after being Christians for a while and starting to have senses of fellowship, we start getting plugged in and pouring into others spiritually. We get involved in ministries and outreaches. But if we get stuck in this section, which it feels good, it feels like it can feel like that is where we're supposed to be, like we've made it. Much like how the Beast was felt like he was and was this good teacher. He was happy and he enjoyed what he was doing. He felt like he had everything figured out. But the problems that arose from his formula no longer working and him no longer having had been in practice of using his willpower to control his mutation. It led to him being forced into a different season of life where he would have to relearn to control his mutation, and it was something that was a situation that caused much restless for him, like how in the Christian life and in life we face tragedies that for a while we might not know how to cope with it or how we can continue going on just because we feel like our lives have been so completely and utterly wrecked by our circumstances. And we have questions. We get hard questions that pop into our mind that allow the enemy to fill our heads with doubt, doubting whether we're saved or not. But this is all part of stage 4, the restless stage. And this is an uncomfortable stage. I'm still probably in it, but I was definitely in it and experiencing the brunt of it during the time I told you that story. And um but through that, I through my experiences in the restless stage, I was forced to be more open with people and trust more people, and I was able to grow. And now people that I've only known for less than a little over than the last little over last 6 months, or last over the last 7 months, are now some of the closest people that I trust. Um, so even though God calls us to uncomfortable, will sometimes call us to uncomfortable circumstances and seasons of restlessness, even when we don't see, even when you don't see the end of it or the light at the end of the tunnel, and are questioning why this is happening, or when will the suffering and restlessness stop, you can trust that even when it doesn't feel like it, God is there. He is with you. He loves you, and He knows what will happen at the end of the tunnel. And He, if we are able to continue to lean on and trust in Him, we are able, we will one day find the end to the tunnel and be more like God, close, and have a closer relationship with Him because of the growth and the strengthening of our spiritual muscles, as our spiritual muscles and faith are tested, stretched, and even a little torn at times through the recovery of those temporary sufferings. Our faith will go stronger, and we will have a greater understanding of and a stronger relationship with God. And the third passage, the second passage is Romans 5, verses 2 through 6. Through Him we have also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God. More than that, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out, has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. For while we were still weak, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. My second talking point is in pursuit of spiritual growth and following God, we will be given unexpected opportunities to continue to do ministry and important to others spiritually as we are poured into spiritually by other people. Um that's the end of my notes. As through the as we continue to grow through our restlessness and gain back our endurance and our faith in God and our relationship with Him and faith in Him are strengthened, we will learn to importance of and be continued to re- continuously reminded to have the importance of having people that pour into us spiritually, and we will out of our brokenness and because of the experiences of our brokenness and the ways we've repented and been saved by Jesus through that, the people that we pour into spiritually will better be able to see Jesus and his love and his mercy and his patience through our testimony and the love and that we are able to give and the words God gives us to speak into the lives of others. Like Beast in this episode, it is important for us to remember that just because something, even though we go through restless seasons of restlessness and tough experiences, that we only are able to see the pain of now, does not mean that they were unnecessary or always because they were out of and we and that not all of our trials like aren't our trials will not always be punishments for sin, but opportunities in which God will have those call us to those rough places in order for our spiritual muscles to be stretched and torn for us to grow in our relationship with God and be able to serve our God and the people God has called us to teach and minister to better. Because before we can help people remove the specks and debris from their own eyes, we need and help shape them to be more like Jesus and help them to grow closer to God and to pour into them spiritually. We have to be willing to let God shape us to become more like Him so that we can be a better example and be better at teaching and sharing the words that God wants us to say and speak into the lives of others and produce good fruits. And with that being said, may God be with you, and I will see you next time. And with that being said, may God be with you, and I will see you next time. Bye.